We'll start with the first session, please. I will ask to the stage here Major General Uzi Moscovici, Head of IDF J6 and the C4I Directorate. Please, Uzi. Brigadier General Carlos de Medina, Head of Cyber Command, Joint Cyber Command in Spain, please. And Rear Admiral Norman Hayes, former Director of Intelligence, EUCOM, J2, please. I would just argue one thing with Eviatar. It just blinked in my mind that I would prefer the technology guys to be knowledgeable in humanitarian studies rather than have the technology guys be a little bit, has some kind, rather than to have the technology guys know only technology. So this is my only remark on that one. So we are lacking. We have too much technologies and lack of humanitarian studies. That's my belief. Okay, so our first presentation is Uzi. Please.
Shalom, Boker Tov. Thank you for having me this morning. Two preliminary remarks I would like to make in regards to the ones made by Eviatar. The first of those, my remarks regarding cooperation and education all of a sudden became redundant, which is okay. That means that I can save a couple of minutes. And secondly, regarding national strategy, or I would say the delicate balance that has to be maintained between its resilience, relevance, and stability. If I recall it right, something like 20 years ago, this was like early 90s, there was a movie by Spike Lee, Do the Right Thing. But we just have to do the right thing, right? No, it's very easy once you determine it like this. My briefing will be composed out of 3 parts. I will provide some general insights. I will try and convey my views about why the cyber domain is so attractive and why this attractiveness is here to stay, at least for the next couple of decades. And I'll try and give my main takeaways about prominent trends and challenges. Now, I'll begin, if I'll be coordinated with the one who's controlling the, okay, it's always like this. I'll begin by a very, very brief introduction of what is the J6. Now, I think that this is not an organizational structure type of slide because they are very, very boring and usually are not useful in the information they hold within. And I would like to briefly say what are the basic or the main areas of responsibility. First, we begin by cyber defense. Afterwards, we are responsible for information assurance and encryption at the national level. We do electronic warfare and spectrum management. We do IT planning and regulation. We do, we plan, program, and operate all of the IDF, almost all of the IDF's information systems. We operate almost all of the IDF's data centers. We enable, in some methods, what we call the jointness between the various services, and we do telecom from fiber to SATCOM. Now, cyber defense. Cyber defense is divided in the IDF, at least this is the current division and partition of responsibility between the J6 and the J2. We are responsible for the defense, and they are responsible for other activities within the cyber domain. This is in accordance to foreign publications. That ensures that they will get the medals, and I will be summoned for hearings and investigation committees. But basically, without the laughter, because there is a seed of truth in this, basically, this is the current way we divided the responsibility. It's working, I think, quite well because there is cooperation and collaboration and some rivalry at, I would say, the local level, but this is something to be considered in the recent or in the near month, maybe years to come, because I think there is a discrepancy, or at least a potential discrepancy, between the challenges and the way we operate. Secondly, and this is the main reason in which I wanted to give this very, very primary briefing about the roles of the J6. When you look at it, you look at the data centers, you look at the information systems, you look at the telecom. If it goes from fiber to SATCOM, then basically you have, this is not surprising, you have some switches, you have some routers over there, you have an information system which is not a simple P2P type of balance of channel. That means you have communication, you have a protocol of communication. Basically, everything is cyber. Everything is cyber within it. Whenever you have, or wherever you have a communication protocol, you have a potential attacker, you have a potential weakness. Now, everything is cyber, so it's not that you have like a separate distinction between all of the IT business and you have some cyber defense which incorporates the cyber defense separately. 3 early warnings. I will try and balance as much as I can between what is permissible as far as disclosure is concerned to what is interesting. Now, this is a balance because basically if I tell you everything that is written within the media, then this is no innovation. If I tell you everything I'm not allowed to tell you, then maybe I'll be summoned to another type of an investigation committee. So I'll try to keep the balance. Cyber. Look, the main takeaways I'm about to convey are the current ones, and this is midst of April 14th. Had I given this type of a briefing, say, 6 months ago, for sure 12 or 18 months ago, I would have had other takeaways. And why is that? Because everything is very new, very dynamic, very vibrant, very volatile. So basically there is a time-limited validity to the insights and the takeaways. The perspective. Eviatar has a wider perspective than I have. He's at the national level. We cooperate, we collaborate, we converse, but what I'm about to brief about is basically the defense sector. This is not necessarily the most holistic way to look upon the problem, the challenge, and I would say the various types of responses. General insights, human capital. Eviatar spoke about it. Everything within the cyber domain, almost everything within the cyber domain, lies upon the human capital. That means that you have to look upon your education system, you have to look upon your human infrastructure, and you have to guide it, coordinate it. I don't know. We are a Western type of democracy. This is not a type of a country, and Jews are very rebellious by nature. They don't like to be told what to do. So no one knows. I mean, this is maybe very, very unique as a specification for Israel, but still efforts of encouraging by incentives, by grants, by tax exempts, you have to somehow try and guide your education system. Otherwise, you will try and meet the challenge, but you won't have the tools. Now, the tools are not the switches, the routers, or the operating systems. The main tool, if not almost the only tool, is the human capital. Cyber warfare versus air warfare. Well, this is almost an inevitable type of comparison. I'm sure you've heard it more than once, so I won't elaborate too much on it, but look upon the history of air warfare between, say, 1917, maybe 1918 to 1939, the 1st of September, the breaking of World War II. Basically what you had during the last 2 years of World War I, as far as air warfare was concerned, you had some bombings. Basically these were handheld grenades thrown not very effectively on the echelons. You had some dogfights between the pilots themselves. You had some reconnaissance, and this was like 1917, 1918. 20 years afterwards, You have the Luftwaffe, you have the RAF, you have the Blitzkrieg, you have the battle for Britain. But this is a factor. This is a factor. This plays a role within the national assessment of the situation. Now, this is almost 100 years ago. This is an era in which the pace of technological advance is not like the one we are witnessing in our own lifetime. So make the comparisons, make the extrapolation, make the analogy. This is going, I don't know where. Why is cyber domain so attractive? First of all, it influences almost everything. Intel organizations are in a quest for the enemy's secrets. This is very obvious. This has been going on for 6,000, maybe 7,000 years since ancient history. During the last 35 years, all of the secrets, our secrets, the enemy's secrets, basically are stored within computers, and now you have, or at least in the last 20 years, you have computer networks. So this is very obvious. Financial crimes, this is very obvious as well. And if I look upon the third item, information, propaganda, incitement, psychological warfare, social media, well, this is about controlling the humans. This is about controlling the humans. You control the humans by controlling the net. You have to look only on the Arab Spring, which erupted 3 years ago, a little more than 3 years ago. This was almost solely initiated, instigated, and propagated by social media. So this is the way you control humans nowadays. Force buildup. An example, or a theoretical example. Say, for instance, you're a nation, and you want to develop ballistic capabilities or very, very substantial ballistic capabilities, say ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. You have to have some raw materials. You have to have a very good engineering infrastructure. You have to have the know-how. You have to have supporters or friends in that domain. You have to have lots of money, and it will take you, I would say, roughly, say, if you are a tribesman living in a tent and you want to have ballistic missiles, between 20 to 30 years, if you're lucky. If you're lucky and you have the resources and the resolve or the money. The money can shorten the way a little bit because you can then buy capabilities or scientists or whatever. Look at the cyber domain. If you want to really, really advance yourself, you want to really go from place number 7, 8, 10 to places number 2, 3, and 4. This is much easier. This is much easier because there is almost no dependence in raw materials or some very, very heavy agreements of cooperation and collaboration. What do you need to have? You need to have the human capital. But this goes back to what Evyatar spoke about. Everything goes to the human infrastructure of it. So the force buildup is very, very cheap when you look at it at the national level. Next takeaway is a little bit simplistic, but it's almost 100% true. Basically, to attack a computer or a computer network, which is 1.5 miles from here or is 1,500 miles from here, basically it's the same. Now, this is a little bit simplistic because this is not identical, but there are more similarities than dissimilarities in the process. So basically, when you look upon the basic mechanism of engagement and the physical distance, if say, for instance, you're a country, you want to engage on a country which is 1,000 miles from you, but this goes back to the ballistic missiles or the Air Force capabilities type of buildup. In the cyber domain, basically the physical distance between the hostile parties is on the verge of having no importance. Now, this is a little bit simplistic because this is not exactly the situation, so this is like a 90% type of assurance declaration. The grid. We used to think about the grid until a couple of years ago. This is rapidly, or our understanding is rapidly changing about, or we used to determine the grid as a cluster of networks of computers. This is much wider than that. It goes to finance. It goes to industrial production. In the industrial production domain, You have controllers. What are controllers? Basically a type of a degenerated type of computers in which most of, or at least great parts of the cycle is being done in hardware and not in software. It goes to SCADAs, but SCADAs control our transportation systems, our energy systems, water dams. So basically the grid has a much wider and I would say a much deeper significance than it had only a couple of years ago. There is a huge reliance on secrecy, availability, and resilience of what? All of our computer-based life systems. Say, for instance, that the New York Stock Exchange site goes down once a month. Let's not exaggerate. It goes down once a month. What does it do? What does it do, I'm sorry, for the credibility and for the indexes and stuff? I'm sure you know the answer. Say, for instance, New York Stock Exchange goes down, and a week afterwards, Hong Kong or Shanghai or Zurich goes down as well. This is an issue. This is an issue. The victim, 3 minutes, okay. Victims' unawareness. We had yesterday an attack that we were aware of its preparations and unsuccessful outcomes. This is not what we fear. We fear from the attack. We don't know. We fear from the ones who are probably staying or have stabilized themselves within our networks. They are speaking to their command and control servers, and you are totally unaware of their presence. So basically, the victim can be totally unaware, and this is not valid for the kinetic type of warfare. And there is a capability of deniability. Who attacked Georgia and Estonia a couple of years ago? I don't know. I don't know. All kinds of rumors and hypotheses running all around the world media. Who did this? I don't know. Last one, I think. Omer, prominent trends. And this is my last slide. The 5 or 6 prominent trends we identify, and I would like to mention that this is valid for April 14th. Say 8 months from now, some of the items might change. The distinctions between rivals and foes or enemies is very, very obscure. There is only one thing. If, for instance, there is a potential rival, I can't mention names of specific nations or organizations. Say, for instance, someone is a rival and he becomes an enemy. First of all, that there will be, I would say, an almost inherent time gap between his transition from one state to another and your knowledge of it. So the one clear thing is basically there is no going back. He won't go back to the rival type of position. But this is very, very obscure and unclear. Secondly, there is a proliferation of knowledge. You identify, I would say, on the verge of identifying specific tools or pieces of scripts and software in a place. 6 months afterwards, you identify the same pieces at another continent. Now, there are connections and interconnections. You look into the intel of it, but there is a proliferation of knowledge which is much easier in the cyber domain. Who is advancing faster, the attacker or the defender? The attackers. The attackers. Their pace of advancement is, at least for now, faster than the ones who are in charge of the defense. We need to cooperate. We need to cooperate between commercial intel, information assurance institutions, the private sector, the defense sector. We need to incorporate into it legislation, but this goes versus, or this is opposed to legislation, or at least current legislation. It is, I would say, opposed to the basic concepts which lie at the foundations of a Western democracy. So this is harsh. And the last takeaway is basically that you have to deal with a very, very wide span of threats, from a DDoS like the one we experienced, an unsuccessful DDoS like the one we experienced yesterday. So this is one arch of the span and the APTs. Now, the APTs are the issue or the main issue, and the DDoS would make the loudest level of noise. But this is very, very wide, and you have to deal with the noise, sometimes with the nose also, with the noise and with the sound. So you have to have a very good continuous distinction at the sound to noise ratio. Thank you.